Kal-El. You do not remember me. I am Jor-El. I'm your father. Even though you've been raised as a human being, you are not one of them. You have great powers, only some of which you have discovered.
If a man gets older and he thinks very differently and things get very clear.
Look, it's a bird. No, it's a plane. No, it's Super John. I stand for truth, justice, and the Blue Roof Way. Today on Nostalgia 100, you will believe a man can fly. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about the one, the only, the OG Superman movie by the one and only Richard Donner. Now, if you haven't seen this movie from the 70s, it is a gem. I think it still holds up as one of the best Superman, if not one of the best comic book movies of all time. It's just, it's fun, it's lighthearted, it's serious. It's everything you want a movie to be, on top of being a comic book movie. You got a Lex Luthor who is corny and kind of cheesebally. You got a Superman who is caring and loving, and he plays the Man of Steel. As well as the I'm a dorky reporter named Cloud Kane. I don't know why I did that voice, but that's how he plays it. Yeah, you see him like when he's Superman, he stands upright. When he's Clark Kent, he hunches over a little bit. It's just, it's so subtle, yet it works. He really does feel like two different people. Nobody has defined Superman the way that Christopher Reeve has done it. And it's not a slight against all the actors who have come after him, or George Reeves, who was amazing. If you've never seen The Adventures of Superman, you should check it out. But it's just, it's a compliment to him. He defined that character and that role so much. And you got a quirky Lex Luthor. You got a badass Lois Lane who has flaws. She can't spell, which is kind of a funny little thing. I can relate. But at the same time, she takes no prisoners. She's not afraid to speak her mind. She's very forthright. Then you have Jimmy Olsen, who's kind of bumbling. You have Perry White, who's very no-nonsense. It's a fun movie. The only real drawback to this movie is they split it in half. The second movie, which is about Zod, was supposed to be a part of this movie, but that would have been way too much movie. But it's why they set Zod up in the beginning of this movie, because they were going to end it with him. I think they made the right choice, and the next episode I do might be about the second movie, because that's still one of my favorite comic movies of all time. But this is not about that movie. This is about episode one. This is about the first Superman movie. Now in this movie, a lot of this movie is set up. Like it's a 2.5 hour movie, and the first hour or so of it is just set up. Like he doesn't put on the cape for a long time. It's not even Christopher Reeves for a long time. It deals with Krypton in the beginning, kind of like how Man of Steel did. Except this Krypton isn't such an action scene. It's a lot more elegant. And then it deals with, it also deals with the death of Jonathan Kent. Because I feel like the death of Jonathan Kent is such a monumental part of Superman. So it's like all superheroes. The death of a character, particularly a father figure, helps define them. Except the Lois and Clark show, they never killed off Jonathan Kent. And he was a great Jonathan Kent. But this one, they do it in a way that is so human and so real and teaches Clark a valuable lesson. It's not like some other movie where Clark watches his dad die and does nothing even though he could save him. This one, his father was taken from him by a heart attack. There was nothing he could do. He couldn't have stopped it even if he tried. And I think that's important. I think that's impactful. I think it hits him where it counts, And it really defined the way he goes. And so when we do finally get him in the Superman costume, well, if you've seen the Sam Raimi Spider-Man, it does kind of that, except obviously did it a couple decades ahead of time. But we see him just solving a bunch of crime, helping people, stopping criminals, getting cats out of trees. It very much establishes, he's a hero. And here's everyone getting to know him as he goes about being a hero. It's cool. It's a montage. But it works. Now, the main plot of this movie is Lex Luthor doing a weird real estate scheme. Which you might be asking, a superhero movie dealing with a real estate scheme? Why? But, I mean, if you lived in a sewer, you'd want to do a real estate scheme too. It just makes sense. Now, I say he lives in a sewer, but his sewer is even nicer than the sewer from Ninja Turtles 2. But that's not the point. The point is he lives in a sewer, and he wants to do a real estate scheme. So he wants to hit the San Andreas fault line and knock all of the West Coast into the ocean. So all this property he bought would now become beachfront property, and he would make a killing. Superman obviously tries to stop him, and Lex Luthor busts out kryptonite, throws him in a pool. Lex's secretary gives him a kiss and saves him, sends him on his way, and he doesn't stop the missile. The missile strikes and causes all these earthquakes, but he manages to stop it. I mean, this Superman is so powerful. He literally stops the fault line from continuing to rupture, and he keeps the West Coast attached. He even lays down and lets a train run across his back. It's so cool. But the one thing he doesn't manage to do is save Lois Lane. While she's driving and she runs out of gas, fall line comes, she falls in, and she gets buried alive. And it's a long-ass scene of her slowly getting buried alive as Superman's doing other stuff. They just went for it. Like, they didn't even hold back. And he gets there seconds after she dies. And he just, no. And then he flies around the earth backwards and rewinds time to save her. It's such an iconic scene. And it fits, it works because, especially because earlier in the script, earlier in the movie, Superman, he lands on Lois's roof and he takes her flying and they meet each other. She does an interview with him and they just bond and connect. And it's such a romantic but moving scene that it sets up the ending to where you could believe Superman would risk everything to save her. Even though he kind of still barely knows her. But you buy it. And then it's funny because then he shows up as Clark Kent to take her on a date. And she just could care less. Like, she's so infatuated with Superman that she could care less about Clark. And he's tempted to tell her, but he doesn't. He holds back. It's an action movie. It's an epic hero movie. It's a goofball comedy, and it's also a romantic comedy all in one, and it blends all of these different genres so perfectly together. Like, it's a masterpiece. If you haven't seen it, you need to check it out. But till next time, I'm Jonathan. This is Nostalgia 100. Up and over there!